okay, being a soldier and a filmmaker was different, but also it's quite a rare occurrence. This is why there aren't many films like Belki Sibe, because not that many people are crazy enough to do this to themselves, basically, because it was a very, very, as the film states, it was a very, very exhausting and frustrating endeavor, to undertake, on top of just objectively very difficult, to combine both these roles in a way, in a situation where effectively also having both roles meant that one role is undermining the other, in this kind of condition. Although not always, to be fair, not always, because in many instances I had access to things that, common journalists would never. The aim of the revolution was never to establish a state, and this has to do also with the change of paradigm within the Kurdish movement. It is actually very specifically said that this is an ideology that transcends the notion of the state, and that it doesn't seek to change borders, but rather to transcend borders.
Welcome to the Cassandra Voices podcast, an Irish home for independent journalism with a global perspective. Our Cassandra Voices podcast offers cautionary tales and inspiring narratives to illuminate our own troubled times. We'll be putting out regular episodes reflecting the broad scope of our magazine's coverage over the last 6 years.
Welcome to the Cassandra Voices podcast. I'm Daniele Idini, co-founder of Cassandra Voices magazine. For this episode, we have asked our friend and contributor, Greek journalist and filmmaker Alexis Daloumis, to sit in for an interview with Luke Sheehan about his newly released documentary Belki Sibe. Back in 2015, Alexis traveled in northern Syria to Rojava to join the Kurdish Syrian Democratic Forces and soon was deployed on the front lines as a member of the International Freedom Battalion. His documentary depicts, with unprecedented candour and rawness, his 18-month journey through war and revolution during the advances and victory against the ISIS and the liberation of Raqqa in 2017. Until then, the Islamic State capital and stronghold. The documentary also includes new footage and interviews from his subsequent visit in 2021 to the same places and cities where he once fought. Now, as a journalist, his camera turns to scrutinize civil life and institutions under the autonomous Kurdish administration. In light of recent developments, we've asked Alexis to talk about the making of his documentary, his experiences on the front lines and that of his comrades, and the potential dangers that loomed over the area and its people now that the United States has withdrawn its support to the autonomous Kurdish administration in favor of the newly established Syrian central government after the fall of the Assad regime.
Alexis Daloumis, welcome to Cassandra Voices.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Alexis, where are you and where are you headed?
Well, I'm currently in Berlin. I had some work here. I had some screenings. There's one more screening on Wednesday in Bielefeld. I wasn't sure whether I will make it. It looks like maybe I can because I am headed to Iraq. I've been trying to get a commission to go and report from the ground in Iraq and northeast Syria. It looks like I got it. But there are still some arrangements to make. So I haven't actually booked the flight yet. But I should be, unless something out of the ordinary occurs, I should be heading to Iraq pretty soon.
And the part of Iraq that's your area of interest is going to be Iraqi Kurdistan.
Yes, northern Iraq, certainly. And I'm going to briefly report from there as well, but my end goal is to report from the ground in northeast Syria.
That's quite an end goal.
I mean, I was there not too long ago as well, so I have it quite fresh. I have fresh reporting. I also published a report quite recently, just as the kind of a dramatic situation was peaking. In fact, I published a report with Dropsite News, an American outlet, and people can find it. It's relatively recent. The title of the article is Total War of Survival. Syria's SDF prepares for showdown with Damascus. This was published on January 21. Like Dropsite is also I would say a pretty prestigious independent media as far as American independent media goes. It's pretty much as good as it gets,
Okay.
Yeah. I recommend that to people, and especially their coverage is quite engaging and a kind of pioneering almost sometimes anything in regards to Palestine.
So you are a journalist, you're a filmmaker, but as the documentary makes clear, you've also been a soldier. Do you think that given what's happening now, will you continue to be a journalist and an observer, or might you go back into your role as a fighter?
No, I don't see that as a prospect. To be honest, because I have to, my work is a journalist. Okay, being a soldier and a filmmaker was different, but also it's quite a rare occurrence. This is why there aren't many films like Belki Sibe, because not that many people are crazy enough to do this to themselves, basically, because it was a very, very, as the film states, it was a very, very exhausting and frustrating endeavor, to undertake, on top of just objectively very difficult, to combine both these roles in a way, in a situation where effectively also having both roles meant that one role is undermining the other, in this kind of condition. Although not always, to be fair, not always, because in many instances I had access to things that common journalists would never.
Yes. And you speak very eloquently and forthrightly about propaganda, and also you distinguish carefully yourself between what is and what isn't propaganda and so on. I mean, I don't want to get into what that may be, but the fact that you attached a camera to yourself in combat, the fact that you were there at the front lines of a war, filming it for yourself so coherently, and made an entire film out of it, that is unique, and it also helps that struggle. Undoubtedly, it
I hope so.
To document and to be able to do both things at once. So, I mean, very, very movingly and interestingly, in another interview, I heard you describe how you actually wanted to go and fight in order to make the resulting film. That's a remarkable of intention. Yeah,
absolutely. The plan to make the film was present from the very first moment of the conception of the overall plan. It was it was almost a 50-50 endeavor, throughout the time. And it was part of the plan and part of the motivation from the very, very beginning.
Yes.
It was an integral part of the plan. It's not something that just happened along the way or whatever. It was entirely premeditated as such.
And you have also described in the past how before you got to Rojava at the time, you had to spend a period of 6 months, if I'm not wrong.
9 months.
9 months, which is not shown in the movie, which would have been excruciatingly boring and frustrating before you could even kind of access the theater of action, which is what we, as an audience, see in the film. So this part of war, the boredom, is something that has to be cut out, but very significant, and you have also experienced that. But now,
and yet it is mentioned in the film.
Yes.
And not even as in terms of whatever waiting periods to get there or whatever, but as actually in an integral part of the war experience.
Now, of course, the situation is not boring. I wanted to frame it this way. If we go and watch your incredible film, we'll see a dual timeline in the editing and the structure of the movie. One is the kind of combat in a kind of earlier period where you introduce the international brigades, and then a later period where you go back and film after the victory, kind of reconstruction period. And for me, the heart of the film is this incredible feature and scene of the school where you are fighting there. Later on, we see this ruined building being reconstituted as a school. And so can you briefly describe where this area is? And also, if possible, can you describe what you think or know is happening there now and with some of the people we see in the film now, if that's okay?
Yes. Well, first of all, let me clarify, like structurally speaking, how the film is narrated is that it's broken down into chapters, and every chapter has the main body of every chapter is referring to like the time of the war against ISIS, so 2016, 17, and like at the end of every chapter. There is a kind of flash forward. There is a small flash forward to 2021, where I'm sort of trying to investigate what, like, kind of the aftermath, like what is the progress and the setbacks in the process, in the development of the revolution.
Absolutely, and you do it very, very well. This is a film that you are so ideologically committed, and yet this film is critical, and this film is really very, very insightful about such a proposition as to create a kind of new state, following through a philosophy to kind of create something new. It's very stunning in that level of detail.
Yeah, let me say, like, we really tried to make it that way, and to include like some kind of critical components as much as we could find. And I would even say this was not easy to do even in the sense, not in any editorial sense, like in a production sense, like it wasn't that easy to be able to record criticism, because not because anyone would stop you, but because a lot of the people you would normally come across were like very ideologically committed to, and they would like kind of repeat the same mantra to some extent, and they wouldn't want to say like kind of anything critical, especially on camera. So it was actually, I had to really try to get like a more balanced, let's say, view of like, okay, there's this, but there's also some grievances about this and that, or there's things that need to be improved, need to be addressed, and so on. Which, however, like, by the way, is also a very integral, like fundamental, most people would suggest, part of the ideology.
Part of revolution.
About self-criticism.
Sure. This comes across.
So in this sense, even that that aspect of our work, or that aspect of the film, is also meant to reflect that. Is also in some ways it reflects the ideology of the revolution that the author fought for.
Absolutely. I want to suddenly throw you a random detail. In another interview, you don't even discuss it in the interview, but the interviewer has researched you. They mentioned drinking boiler water. When I'm watching the movie, people are continuously, this part of Syria, not necessarily warm all the time. People probably think it's a big boiling desert. No, it's a very landscape. But I in the background of your movie, I keep seeing these kind of, clearly they're like heaters with boilers attached. And I was wondering, what are these heaters? They've all got these heaters. And then in another interview, someone says you were drinking boiler water. And I went, oh God.
Yes, he actually does say this is someone who was fighting in the city center of Manbij.
Yeah.
And he's actually also saying like the worst waters I ever drank. He's specifying that. Like he recalls it with some dread, he had to drink that. Sorry, what did you say before that?
Well, I mean, I guess what in referencing this, I want to just jump.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. I mean, obviously,
how uncomfortable this was. This was seriously difficult.
It's not difficult to imagine. Like, it's the desert. Everyone knows that. Like, everyone knows the desert is cold at night, even when it's hot in the day. But also, there's like pretty harsh winters. We even had a snow blizzard at some point while we were at the school.
Wow.
Like a literal snow blizzard. And also, nights can be very cold, especially if you have to do guard duty, which you do always. And even I remember at one point when we were in that desert, something that is features in the film, in that desert Shatir, how can I, like a foxhole, you would say, maybe in English, although I'm not sure if it is exactly the Well, a point in the desert that is basically just like the fortification is just sand. What do you call it? I keep forgetting this word. Berm, sand berm, like a circular sand berm.
Yeah.
In the middle of the desert, and so this was one of the most miserable times ever, and like of the most hardship we had to endure, because first it was like excruciatingly cold at some points, and also we didn't have great equipment in the beginning, but also it after getting really cold the first day, I think it was the second day, it started raining, and like we had nothing, we were just soaking. We're just soaking wet, and there was a point where I remember we had to like wake up for nobet, like guard duty, every 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like every 2 hours, we would do 2 hours guard duty. Like it was throughout the night, like throughout for all. And it was also dark for a long time. Yeah, so every 2 hours, 2 hours guard duty, and then return to some like soaking wet blankets and like cover yourself with a literally soaking wet blanket, like just and like put yourself inside. It was I don't know how we didn't get sick, to be honest. Like it was.
When did you first get a sense of your
Sorry, let me just say this, like, and while we were there, like at some point, like a couple of days later or whatever, a car with some officers came by to check on us and whatnot, and we didn't even have any exchange or anything. Like this guy just looked at my hands.
Yes.
And he just went to the car, opened the glove compartment, took a Vaseline, and just gave it to me. Like without even me saying anything. Sorry, go on.
We can picture you there in this situation, and the film, I mean, it does, for a one-person movie, it carries across a lot of the reality of warfare just very, very well. Footage that I think you took yourself for the most part, and also interviews with people who were engaged in something difficult and ad hoc. And when did you get a sense of the enemy? Because that is an interesting enemy. It's a fascinating situation in many ways, but who you were fighting also, it's very, very significant. And you went out there to fight them. You were motivated by doing that. But when you first got into contact with them, what was that like? And when did you get a sense of who you were really up against?
I mean, I'm not totally sure what you mean a sense. I can tell you this: contact in the military sense is not necessarily, or in fact, in this situation, most of the time, is not close quarter combat, or like or what people would imagine as close quarter combat. Like most firefighting would happen. I would say most of the time, but it also depends, because there's ambushes or this and that, like different instances, or like house and building clearings where you could get like just a few meters or a few feet away from the enemy and like engage in this kind of exchange. But I would say that most of the time, and definitely most of the time in our experience and in the experience that is depicted in the film in particular, firefighting was taking place like in a distance of like 100 to 300 meters.
Yes, and you describe
so a lot of the time, like the enemy would be like, in terms of a physical presence, would be like this small shadow in the distance that you try to shoot at, like you try to aim at and kind of take down, like for the most part until much later, there wasn't. Okay, there was one instance actually quite early on that is not anywhere in the film, but that there was one prisoner already in Minbij, like quite early on. That was fairly obviously ISIS. I mean, obviously he was he would deny that, but I like who wouldn't, but there was evidence, and frankly, he wasn't even hiding it very well. So there was, in this sense, like just a visual representation of the face of the enemy in this way. But then, like in terms of again, in terms of looking at them as like figures, as faces, let's say, it was like, for me, it was more often as corpses.
Yeah,
it was as still like kind of alive.
You described quite movingly how you're actually not very touched at all when you kind of come across their remains, but when you see even one blood patch on the ground that is left by one of your fellow soldiers, and you're utterly...
Yeah, well, look, I'm thinking, I mean, the film is out there now, and people can can see it on YouTube, on my channel, Alexis Daloumis.
Yeah.
The title is Belki Sibe, a journey through the Syrian war and the Rojava revolution is like the subtitle. So like people can watch it, and a lot of people already have, but I guess hopefully there's a lot more that still would want to watch it. So
I'm sure they will.
In that sense, I don't want to make too many spoilers, let's say. But I would say this, like, this is a rather sensitive part of the film, and we were quite apprehensive and cautious about how to do it, about even how to do the recording. And I would say that I would say this. I really tried to make this film, and my associates, we all tried after all together, like to make this film as honest as possible.
Yes.
I said, because I had conversations with the editors, partly and so on, and which wasn't even to, like, in some cases, especially with Yanis, and I mean with Lou as well, like, he was saying, like, I just want to discuss this. It's not like to understand your logic, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Like, so we had discussions, we had like analysis of what we're doing and why and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the main thing, like, is that I tried to do it as honest as possible. I wanted to make it as honest a testimony as possible. And that ended up entailing some quite difficult and graphic images as well. And in some particular point of the film that that you've also mentioned, like in terms of the school chapter, where was also like we fought 3 battles in the school, and like the second battle of the school was probably the biggest and hardest battle the IFB ever gave. Like, this was quite a significant battle.
Wow.
That day, and I guess I would say this again, not to like describe exactly how it is, but like I tried to like to make a point in those sequences. And the intense images, which, by the way, on the YouTube version are heavily blurred.
Yes.
Most people will not see them. They serve a purpose in terms of like what I already mentioned, as the honesty in regards to what the reality of the situation was. So on the one hand, going against the logic, I don't know, a kind of traditionalist BBC-ish kind of logic that things need to be curated for the general public or whatever. Like, kind of just, show the reality of the situation more kind of raw,
Sure.
On one,
I think you can see it.
But also to make a point in regards to stereotypes about war narratives, and in some way counter some stereotypes about war narratives. which is that like the way that most people understand and perceive war is heavily mediated by like kind of Hollywood representations
Absolutely.
of what war is, and that's so often complete nonsense, even or even perhaps especially in a tactical sense. Like the kind of things we often see in war films are completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sometimes like but also even in a more like whatever, like kind of emotional sense or whatever, like the kind of, there is some very particular ways in which, especially I guess, American entertainment industry likes to sort of dramatize things or frame things, and to that effect, like I tried to as much as possible have a honest testimony that often goes kind of counters these kind of stereotypes.
We can see the building in the film during the combat in particular, as it's barely standing. It's kind of so shot out that there's just a shell there, a structure there. Then we jump ahead in time and we can see that it's been reconstituted as a school. And this is very moving, and you're declaring yourself in the voiceover that this really puts it into perspective as to why someone like yourself may be so motivated as to go there and do something so difficult. So, given all of that, can you describe for the audience what is happening in that area now, and what is the situation in Rojava now?
Okay, so the school was in the village of, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Tulfknais. It's a relatively small village north of Raqqa, in Raqqa province.
Right.
Directly north of Kalta, in fact. It's near Kalta. And so, therefore, as anyone who has been following this even on a basic level can understand, that right now it is it is controlled by the new interim government of Damascus, the Syrian transitional government of Ahmed al-Shara, who, of course, we had known for very long before that as Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. So, I don't have any specific information from the ground, especially this is just a small village. I would imagine, and like people I just talked with, in fact, would say that it's probably quite a shock for small children, like for the children of the school, like that had experienced like a different style and a different sort of ambience, let's say, of education, a different approach to gender, definitely, and like with all the like it's one thing that is like to wonder is to what extent those girls will keep going to school, and as it is like, and I guess in the discussion I had, it was speculated that, well, probably they will not be legally coerced to stop, or at least not right now. Not right now, but maybe later when no one's looking.
Exactly.
But even in the meantime, it is possible, that there will be increasing pressure to their families to maybe take them from school. I mean, we'll see. We'll see about all that as well. But it's definitely it will be a very different school, I imagine. And I can't necessarily speak to the like feelings of each population. There's differences from place to place. and like I'm not even saying the one way or the other, but I don't really have, and I don't necessarily trust narratives depending on the source as well. Like from many sources, I wouldn't trust the narratives. But in any case, I don't have any reportage from the ground to speak of.
Jelani has made a statement. I mean, Damascus, Jelani has produced, I think, a document, or at least tried to create a sense of kind of, in particular, I think, Kurdish self-determination, or
I mean, he produced a presidential decree, and what is important about it is that it's like a kind of, like, to some extent, it's just a piece of paper. This will not really have any decisive and conclusive gravity until it is inscribed in the Constitution. And this was what was kind of said about this from the beginning. So at that moment, it was a little bit of it was seen a bit as a maneuver. But at the same time, I mean, also, let's see what happens.
Allowing even that he may not have full control over every single, kind of Sunni extremist.
Look, here we go. Like, look,
do you have any credit?
Theoretically,
he has credibility at all? Yeah.
Not so much. That's the thing. I will explain. The problem is that one quite fundamental problem with the latest agreement that a lot of people would refer to is that the Damascus government has pretty much violated every previous agreement.
Right.
Including agreements of like withdrawal, like the SDF forces were repeatedly attacked while retreating, while withdrawing after an agreement, ceasefire agreement. And as they were retreating from a certain position that they had, and in some cases like a very, very fortified position, they were retreated as they were moving. They were attacked as they were moving. And like also every single ceasefire has been broken before. Every single agreement has not been implemented. Has not been followed through. So
it speaks to his lack of control.
So for now, this agreement, until like implemented, until put in practice, and we see how it really does look on the ground, it's just words. It's just words on paper. However, having said that, if, like, theoretically, if we were to trust that this is what's going to happen as described, that people on the ground do not trust that. People on the ground don't trust the government.
They're right not to, surely,
Don't take their word for anything. But let's speculate and say that, okay, if everything that is described in this agreement comes to pass and becomes reality on the ground, it would technically, like, we could, like, it would be the most rights that the Kurdish population has ever had.
This is great. This is great. This is
history of a Syrian nation.
This is great that you can point that out.
A century old. But...
Yes.
Sorry, say again.
It's great that you can point that out. I mean, you're not dismissing it, but we can also.
No, but I told you what the problem with it is. Like already, the fact that it is implied. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it's not implied. It is stated that this is meant to be a plan that will be implemented, and like and all of this will be integrated within 1 month.
Nonsense.
Which is
nonsense.
Kind of ridiculous. Obviously ridiculous. Is already creating a lot of suspicion to people on the ground that this is not going to work. This is this is another plan that's going to collapse, and we're gonna break war is going to break out again in 1 month. If they really mean it, that this is another deadline, that in 1 month it should be blah blah and whatever, like, then it probably means we have war in 1 month.
Right. I see.
So already there are some evidence that it's not clear how even committed they are to this agreement.
Alexis,
But let's see, because also, that be extended, obviously. So it's let's see.
Let's see.
What you are listening to has taken time and resources to prepare. It is a collaboration of committed journalists. Please, if you can, share, subscribe, or support this podcast in whatever way you can.
Alexis, you're going to Iraq and Iraqi Kurdistan, and then, your engagement with this people is very deep. I mean, without getting into anything sensitive or controversial, can you describe how the perspective is from Iraqi Kurdistan on events in Syria for the Kurds there?
Yeah, so look, this is actually... There's probably more nuance than we can even possibly meaningfully get into in the kind of short frame of a segment of one podcast. But
sure.
Iraqi Kurdistan, or like Bashur, as it's also known amongst the Kurds, like southern Kurdistan. Has been ruled by somewhat different political entity than the one that gave rise to the Rojava revolution.
Definitely.
There are different, there are different factions of Kurdish politics, different entities, which also, given the nature of the region, also coincide with some specific clans. So in Iraqi Kurdistan, there is two major powers, the KDP and the PUK, and they are respectively controlled and run by the Barzani and the Talabani clans. Now, the Barzani clan and its rule, the KRG, like the Kurdish regional government, has often been at odds with Rojava revolution and with the PYD, and is of a notably different political orientation.
Yes.
However, lately, there has been, given everything that is happening on the base level, on the level of the base of the Kurdish people, there has been increasingly a vibe and a disposition for Kurdish unity,
One would think so, yeah. Surely this must be...
The people on the ground in Bashur, the people on the ground in Iraqi Kurdistan have been very active in going to demos. In fact, even in trying and achieving even to enter Rojava, to volunteer, to fight, to defend the Kurdish regions, and so on.
Is there a possibility of a refugee flow across the border into Iraqi Kurdistan from Syria?
We don't see that so far.
Okay.
I mean, if there is a massacre, yes, sure, of course. If something starts and if they would enter Kobani and start massacring, for example,
which we're afraid of. I mean, I'm afraid of that. Yeah.
I mean, but keep in mind that also entering Kobani will not be very easy part of you. I guess people should understand that it's now, it all seems complicated because the SDF has been retreating. So far, they didn't really fight until they got to that point. They did fight a bit after that, and that was the point where the SDG kind of realized that, okay, advancing from this point on is going to be very different, like a very different story, with, enormous casualties if they would try to take it all the way.
We would be talking about a lot of urban warfare and like some village warfare and some stuff in the desert, but probably mostly towns.
Mostly urban warfare, and
Yeah,
that would be, I would say, that would be partly catastrophic for the Damascus forces. You know, like they might eventually prevail, but at like astronomic cost, I would say, on every level, including on the personnel level.
Our SDF armament,
they would lose thousands upon thousands of fighters in order to achieve that. And that is as well, and that is in fact even factoring in the ambulance assistance from Turkish Air Force and drones and artillery. Yeah,
and even then they would have to pay a massive cost.
Our SDF so that is part of the calculation in the agreement. That is being made, I would say.
Our SDF armament's pretty good. Then they actually have enough weapons for their purposes at the moment. Would you say?
I think so.
Okay. You mentioned Turkey just now on the kind of air support that they might give such an assault, but this bigger picture, a lot of it is being determined by the behavior of Turkey and Erdogan. We've actually on this podcast had some very useful in-depth coverage of Turkey. If you're willing to talk about it, what would you say is the calculation from Turkey at the moment, its involvement here in Syria and with the Kurds?
I mean, okay, this is a very complicated topic. What I guess I'll try to be say some things like synoptically, let's try to synopsize some basic things like
beautiful Greek word.
I guess what people should keep in mind is that there has been all this time, as this negotiation has been going on in Syria, there has been also a kind of twin negotiation, we could call it twin negotiation on the other side of the border, like within the Turkish state, which is between Turkey and the PKK. Everything that's been going on with Abdullah Öcalan and so on. So there's been another peace process over there.
Yes, that's extraordinary.
I would say that the two processes are integrally connected.
Yes.
And this is why there's a very precarious balance. And even recently it was pretty much it was known, and it was also stated like one of the reasons that it would be, very difficult to completely obliterate Rojava, to enter the Kurdish areas and
I hope so,
occupy them without any kind of, is because that would also effectively blow up the peace process in Turkey.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I mean, that didn't stop them this far, to be fair as well. But I think this is also part of the calculation of making this deal and trying to make some kind of deal that is not an unconditional surrender, as they tried to demand, as Damascus tried to demand before the latest fighting.
And does the fate of Gaza and Turkey's kind of potential influence in that conflict come into play here in any way?
It looks like, no one can know, literally know and verify in the literal sense, that what is said behind closed doors or along the corridors of power and whatnot, But there is a timeline of events that does present some evidence to what might have been going on, I would say.
Definitely.
So I'll tell you what. Let's just stick to the facts and just follow a timeline. All right. So on October 10th was the Gaza ceasefire. Trump's as the so-called like Trump's Gaza deal. Yeah, one that was widely perceived as a Gaza surrender.
Right.
Or at least, well, at the very least, not a very good deal for Palestine. You know. On October 13th was the official ceremony of where they signed. They signed like the peace document, yeah, the peace declaration, whatever. And so that was signed by the U.S., I guess, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt. I want to say. I think. I would double check that. Actually,
was it signed in Qatar?
Sorry, excuse me.
Where was it actually? The ceremony and so on, was that in Qatar or some other location?
Let me double check this. I think so, but let me. Can I check this one moment?
Please God, Jared Kushner was there, because whenever he's present, something really great happens.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, but I think you're very right to zoom in on this timeline. You're absolutely right to go into what's happening.
I mean, Trump himself was there, but okay, hang on a minute. Can we take a pause to check this? Like, because I don't. Okay, cool. So anyway, yeah. So the meeting was in Egypt. And the point I want to make is that during that meeting, I imagine, although the reporting doesn't specify that, but it's kind of easily deduced. During that meeting, Trump praised Erdogan. For as such a reliable ally, as that the fact that his so-called Trump's Gaza deal would not be possible without him,
Absolutely.
And he says, quote, "This gentleman from a place called Turkey is one of the most powerful in the world." End quote. And then again, quote, "He's a reliable ally. He's always there when I need him." End quote. So that's the 13th of October. So moving on further, we have, I think, again, not to confuse the dates, it's not super important, just not to be inaccurate, I will say, I will keep, no, it is true, actually. No, I just double checked, okay, it is indeed December 19th. On December 19th, we have the lifting of the Caesar Act from the U.S. Congress. Yeah, like a major stake.
Yes.
For Syria and for Ahmed al-Shara. Yeah, it's the last, like a big bulk of sanctions against Syria that al-Shara desperately needed to have removed.
Yes.
So there was a lot of there was even a lot of doubts about this in Congress and whatnot, but with the pressure of Trump, the sanctions were lifted.
Yeah.
December 19.
Yes.
The same day, the Syrian Foreign Ministry of the new government in Damascus, in fact, as I recall, in a celebratory message, in a celebratory announcement about the Caesar Act repeal, they posted a map of Syria that for the first time in history featured Syria without the Golan Heights.
Right.
It was a map of Syria without the Golan Heights.
And remind the audience
on the same day.
Remind the audience of why that tiny area is important.
Excuse me?
Remind the audience of why this tiny area, the Golan Heights, are important.
Oh yeah, because it's been occupied by Israel like since the 1967, and it's like like it's content, like it's not it's like an occupation. It's meant to be an occupation, and that like Syria never
Right.
never acknowledged that this is Israeli territory and so on, and it's meant to be like an occupied territory, like an illegally occupied territory. But suddenly there is some evidence that it looks like the new Syrian government is giving that up, or at least it's kind of signaling that way,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, again, let's stick to the facts. December 19, two things happen. Caesar Act gets repealed, and the same day, little later, the Syrian Foreign Ministry issues posts a map of Syria without the Golan Heights. That's what it is. People can, whatever, deduce. Maybe it was an accident.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a clerical error. Who knows?
Yeah.
I wasn't there when they decided. I don't know, but it can be. Who knows? But this is the evidence anyway. These are the facts. Now, from then on, if we go to just a few days before the escalation started, which started in Aleppo, there is a critical meeting on January 4, the meeting in Damascus between between the SDF and the Damascus government, as part of the ongoing negotiations. And multiple sources from the SDF have testified, and it has been reported both on Drop Site in my report, but also like in Reuters. After that, while the meeting was making significant progress and advancing towards a joint announcement of that progress, and that literally moments away from both parties like signing the progress made and the agreements made that far, the meeting was interrupted. And as my source in my report originally said in the Drop Site coverage, that before Reuters, that is, that was the Syrian foreign minister, Shaibani, someone who is widely considered by people within the Kurdish movement and many others, really. But again, it's allegedly to be Ankara's asset.
Okay.
Someone very close to Hakan Fidan, especially. Again, this is this is an interpretation. This is allegedly he's Hakan Fidan's man.
Yeah.
Within the Syrian cabinet.
He's very close to Jalani, right?
Yes.
I mean,
he's the foreign minister, like he's
which is at the moment an extremely important role. Let's put it mildly.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was the one who broke this meeting. Again, his office would probably refute this allegation. It's like they. I haven't really reached for comment, but I would easily imagine that they would refute this allegation and probably say that that like the minister is working for Syria, and whatnot, and only Syria and so on. Just to say that, okay, this is like an allegation. This is an interpretation. Yeah.
Right.
So January 4, the meeting gets kind of disrupted and basically sabotaged. And then the next day, the Paris meeting starts. The Paris meeting was like technically it was a meeting between Syria and Israel.
Right.
However, it was mediated by the United States with the presence of Tom Barak.
Yeah.
And also Hakan Fidan was lurking in the premises, so to speak.
And Shaibani wasn't there.
And Shaibani was representing Syria in that meeting.
Oh, he was there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, he was representing Syria. He was the main person there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Shaibani had a separate meeting with Hakan Fidan during these 2 days, 5 and 6 of January. And there was progress made between, in the let's say the relations between Syria and the new Syria and Israel. And then on January 6th, the battle in Aleppo started. The fighting in Aleppo started.
Right.
From then on, the escalation just didn't stop until now. So that's a timeline of events worth keeping in mind.
Absolutely. Do you think that when you get to Iraq, you will be able to fill in your perspective with more detail?
I certainly hope so.
Alexis, before we wind up the episode, and if it's okay to share it, I know these times must be extremely emotional for you, having fought for that revolution in that state. What do you expect to encounter when you arrive in Iraq and potentially in Syria?
I mean, in Iraq, I expect to, I guess, see and hopefully record some of this ambience of, Kurdish unity, of solidarity to Rojava amongst the people, and so on, the support.
Which is unbroken in your view at the moment, which is good news.
So it seems, yes. So it seems.
Yeah.
And then in Rojava, I mean, who knows? I guess, I mean, from what I understand, sure, I expect to come across, confusion on one part, confusion and uncertainty, as I already have, let's say, like some reportage about, but also a very strong resolve of defending the gains of the revolution,
right?
In whatever territory is left. But in any case, like in the previous period, I know from sources on the ground that there was, like, when there was a call for general mobilization, like, people, like, the ambience changed dramatically, because before people were like, it was
right.
Know what's happening. The forces were already retreating, but like then it was more or less, it was said, okay, here we make a stand. Like, okay, we retreated this far, but this is a line in the sand now, and this line in the sand was not crossed. I mean, it was attempted, but it was met with excruciating force. And so I also expect to find a very strong resolve in the general population that they will not, that they will defend, in case of, like, in case things kind of derail again, that they will defend their homeland, in the like, to the bitter end.
I find one thing extraordinary in your film. Oh, it's in the background. I think an attentive viewer and someone with historical knowledge, some context, they will understand that the enemy that you're fighting, they also wanted to create a state, obviously, and also had this kind of utopian vision. Although I would say almost any human perspective would see it as a kind of hellish nightmare, what they actually created. But it's an extraordinary thing to have a conflict of two groups who are both trying to establish, on visionary terms, a new state. in that region.
Well, we'll have to say that in reality, like the aim of the revolution was never to establish a state, and this has to do also with the change of paradigm within the Kurdish movement. It is actually very specifically said that this is an ideology that transcends the notion of the state, and that it doesn't seek to change borders, but rather to transcend borders.
Okay.
Yeah, and in that sense, like this is why, like this was like this is part of the notion of like democratic confederalism.
Yeah.
And why it was also like framed as such, like that it's that to have this kind of transition to focusing on local governance and so on, like like beyond, across borders.
I want to zoom in at the last statement, and I'll leave you to close it out, because it's interesting. In our last episode of this podcast, we spoke to a Turkish journalist, Fatma Akmaleyman, who covered Turkish politics, but she referenced obliquely like the whole idea of negotiation with the Kurds and with Abdullah Öcalan, if I'm saying his name
Öcalan.
This is an extraordinary thing, and where this person is and what's going on around him and that philosophy, that is worth having a look at. Could you just describe that for the audience? Who he is, where he is, and what's going on with him?
I mean, he has been imprisoned since 1999
on an island.
The island Imrali, an island like island prison, like kind of like Alcatraz or whatever.
Yeah,
imagine. I don't really know exactly what it looks like, but I should say, like, I'm not any authority on Öcalan and his writings and his philosophy. I can say he has been profoundly influential within the Kurdish movement.
Yes.
And, kind of like an important and almost metaphysical figure.
Wow.
Like
absolutely.
Across.
But
that also relates to his imprisonment, his confinement, because he was also like, he was very present in his writings and in the ideology and everything, but also completely absent as a physical entity through all these years, So it was like, he was like more speech than matter in a way, in the conscience of the people,
Yeah.
But nobody saw him for like 25 years, and so on. So I guess now that he has made some sort of public appearances and so on, he's now more perceived again as a physical being, and a political actor.
Fascinating the way you put it. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's inevitably people will lean towards, saviors, martyrs, Messiah, and so on. You deal with it critically in the film. I mean, this instruction, this ideology is supported but criticized in a very dynamic way. And here we have a guy who's been physically absent but sort of spiritually and intellectually present for a population that really needs guidance for so long. How fascinating. Then the idea that Erdogan, who has been in power for that length of time, essentially, on top of the castle, while this man is in the prison underneath it, is still kind of negotiating with him 25 years later. What an extraordinary thought.
Yeah, well, there are enormous stakes for everyone involved at the same time. This is a whole much broader topic, which...
Yep, we can talk about it another time.
Which could make for another podcast. So let me maybe just tease. But all of this is happening in sort of and from a backdrop of what I like to call a game of corridors.
Okay.
Unraveling, like unfolding in the Middle East and the broader region, in fact. So
please explain the term. Why do you derive corridors?
Well, because right now there are enormous stakes stakes of historical proportions in terms of the development of economic corridors from Asia and especially perhaps in India through the Gulf states, the Middle East to Europe.
Yes. Okay.
So specifically the IMEC corridor, the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor.
Those are the corridors.
Is of enormous significance and consequence to the future of that region and all the regions involved, in fact. And for the moment, this is a corridor that is bypassing Turkey to their enormous dismay. That is a great dismay. And they are trying to promote another plan, the development road that goes through Iraq, and that they try to co-sponsor with Qatar, which they have been in coordination, in many instances. But neither plan has, and all of this is also in the, there are basic plans of mostly the Western world to compete with the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative of China.
Absolutely, that was my next question.
Obviously that's the magnitude of the stakes.
Yes,
this is about this touches. This is, as I said, that this is where local conflicts and local dynamics intersect with
the biggest stakes imaginable,
historical stakes of global geopolitics.
Absolutely, and then these are areas. I mean, this region of the world is not just so conflicted due to being a source of oil, but also it's a transition point. It's a corridor itself. The oil is piped across it, but also, in the case of say Egypt, global freight goes through it, and so on. And so the choke point of the world often falls down on these little places, even the little kind of village that you were fighting in.
Yeah, and there's many aspects about there is a huge gravity, huge importance in how supply lines work.
Yes.
And there's a lot that goes under the radar. To reference previous part of our discussion, what a lot of people don't realize with all the posturing of let's say the Turkish state towards, and the rhetoric against Israel is that what a lot of people don't realize is that as much as Israel and Turkey keep barking at each other, they hardly ever bite.
I can tell you, I've been in the souk in Istanbul, and I've clearly seen a whole bunch of Israeli tourists around.
Well, I'll tell you another thing. I'll tell you something which is likely more significant than that. What most people don't seem to know is that the Israeli genocidal machine runs on Azeri oil primarily.
Right, the pipeline.
Oil from that is petroleum from Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Which Azerbaijan is arguably the closest ally of the Turkish state.
Yeah.
One nation, two states is the mantra that they use. I know, for example, in the Nagorno-Karabakh war, where you could see a great harmony between the products of the Israeli and the Turkish military industries, working both for the side of Azerbaijan.
And ethnically cleansing Armenians.
Yeah, well, the Armenians, as depicted, in fact, even in documentaries sometimes and so on, they call Azeris, they often refer to Azeris as the Turks. This is how close Azerbaijan is, to Turkey. Also within, you can see also a reflection as of similar agendas. There is the kind of imperial kind of fantasy of pan-Turkism. Yeah,
absolutely.
Azerbaijan is an integral, a very integral part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But what is important to make a point about final is that, so not only is the closest ally of Turkey supplying Israel with, is the primary, the first, number one top supplier of Israel with oil, but also that oil passes through the Turkish port of Ceyhan.
Right.
There you go.
Alexis, will you be safe?
That's geopolitics for you.
Alexis, will you be safe wherever you're going?
I mean, I should hope so. I'm a journalist. But that doesn't mean much as much as it used to. It seems.
You have experience anyway. And we're hoping that you would talk to us again when you have, I suppose, your footing and have the time to do so. Is that all right?
Hopefully, yeah. Let's hope. Let's plan for it and hope for the best.
Alexis Daloumis, thank you so much for talking to us, and our audience will
Thank you for having me.
Will be directed to watch your film, which they can do so for free on YouTube.
Yes, they can find it on my channel, Alexis Daloumis.
Okay, thank you,
They
Alexis.
can also find me and check my other work in pretty much every social media platform, whatever it is they are using.
Okay.
Under that name, under that same name, Alexis Daloumis.
Alexis, thank you for talking to Cassandra Voices.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Cassandra Voices is a multimedia project that seeks to highlight independent voices and inspire original thinking with stories from Ireland and around the world. Go to CassandraVoices.com online to read more and look out for more episodes from us in future. Your attention and your support are crucial. Thank you.